Good morning, all, ladies and gentlemen, dear COVALEX project partners, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us today. It is my great pleasure to welcome you at today's webinar on effective application of disaster risk reduction information technology tools for hydrometeorological hazards local level. My name is Miodrag Kolic, project manager at NALAS and also project coordinator of the COVALEX project at NALAS. We will start this webinar with a short introduction of the project and then we will talk a little bit and explain the objectives and the structure today's agenda of the webinar. First about NALAS. NALAS is a network of association of local authority of Southeast Europe. We have 13 member local government associations and the main objective of NALAS is to strengthen local government association as representatives of the local governments to improve the services to the citizens and also to promote the process of decentralization where the local governments consider having a key role. And in overall, we contribute to European Union integration processes. When it comes to the COVALEX project, NALAS is one of the 6 partners that are part of the COVALEX project. It is European Union funded project by DG ECHO. Together with NALAS, the partners are University of A Coruña from Spain as a project coordinator, then Disaster Competence Network from Austria, then General Secretariat for Civil Protection from Greece, Italian Red Cross and CIMA Research Foundation also from Italy. COVALEX aims to strengthen cooperation and risk management in the face of hydrometeorological events and hydrometeorological multi-hazards events. And it aims to establish a common and extended community of experts capitalizing on sector knowledge and in hydrometeorological events and hydrometeorological multi-hazards events, something that we will try to cover with today's webinar training workshop. Before continuing, I would like to invite Jana, if she is ready, to also welcome you. We are together in the team of NALAS that is coordinating the COVALEX project.
Yes, thank you, Mia. Thank you. I'm here. Yes, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session on managing hydrometeorological hazards at the local level, which is part of the NALAS activities, as Mia mentioned, within the COVALEX project. I'm happy to see all of you, professionals from the local government, and I believe people from the startup community and the innovation hubs. The development of risk and vulnerability assessment is vital in creating robust adaptation plans and measures, and these assessments allow us to identify the people, infrastructure, and systems that are particularly at risk or highly vulnerable, thereby enabling us to prioritize actions effectively. Local governments, being closest to the citizens, have the best understanding of the local context, infrastructure, and communities. With this unique position, they are the best to identify vulnerabilities and consequently the risks involved. One of the key factors in managing this risk is the utilization of digital solutions. And I'm working in this project as an expert in digital solutions and smart city technologies. So evidence-based decision-making, analysis, and planning supported by digital tools and locally generated data are essential for delivering more effective, innovative, resilient, and high-quality infrastructure and services. These solutions include resilient infrastructure planning and construction, smart urban mobility, energy efficiency, sustainable urban planning, and digital public services. For the local level, which is NALAS' primary focus, we are aware of the limited capacity and resources. There is often an expectation that solutions will be provided from the central level, while implementation is carried out locally. However, local data are crucial for an adequate response and to develop preparedness plans. Moreover, the local data is essential for all the modeling, training, and preparing of various actions. So local digital ecosystems that include academia and startups can be very helpful in providing solutions tailored for regional and local level. This is why we have invited representatives from innovation hubs to this training. Their participation aims to activate them in creating innovative solutions for local government challenges and to work with the small and medium enterprises and startups on finding practical answers to the challenges posed by hydrometeorological and technological hazards. NALAS serves as a hub for knowledge sharing, experiences, and providing training for local government authorities. Our geographical coverage includes areas affected by climate change impacts, and local governments are always on the front line of actions. So their preparedness in assessing the vulnerability and implementing climate adaptation measures is highly needed. So your engagement in this training is just a proof to your commitment of enhancing your community's resilience. I believe that all together we can find and get a collective knowledge. We will stimulate some innovative spirit and share experiences to build a safer, more resilient future. Thank you, and let's begin with the webinar. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Jana, for this important introductory words. Now, I will give the floor to Mr. Vasko Popovski, disaster risk management expert, that will be the trainer of this training workshop and to lead us through this webinar. Vasko, floor is yours.
Thank you, Miodrag. Good morning from me. Good morning from Skopje. I will lead you through our today's journey into the innovation for resilience with the objective to raise the awareness about innovative practices and actions to boost the resilience building of hydrometeorological risk for the innovators both in the area of startups, hubs, and the local governance. Today, we would like to achieve to get the participants to get the critical insights into the nature and impact of weather-related hazards and provide you with the essential knowledge to understand the resilient building processes. You will explore the latest innovations and solutions for resilience building, like risk assessments, early warning systems, and other mitigation techniques or preparedness and response behaviors and solutions. Also, we would like to contribute to additional development of the collaboration between the local level actors and the innovators from startup domain or innovation hubs, innovation sector, and to encourage you to adopt the approach to apply the advanced technologies and best practices in order to build the resilience of the society and the communities in order to effectively and efficiently manage the risk of hydrometeorological hazards. Structure is based on a three-pillar approach. With the first session, we will dive into the essential dimension of hydrometeorological hazards, then brief overview of past disasters, why it is important to have an effective and efficient risk management system, as well as to finish with the global disaster risk reduction, sustainable resilient development framework, and why it is important to build resilience to hydrometeorological hazards. Then, during the second session, we will investigate the current trends and challenges in the management of hydrometeorological risk. And finally, during the third one, we will be focused on the innovation part, why it is important to innovate for resilience. Innovation and resilience might be two trending words, buzzwords, especially resilience. It's highly in the language agenda following the COVID-19 crisis. But we will see application of various technologies and solutions for advancing the resilience building agenda and for really supporting the local level governments, local actors, stakeholders, as well as communities. Then we'll have a brief question and answer session where you can share your insights, experiences, your question, your feedback or suggestions, and we will explore the potential collaboration and future pathways of development of innovation for resilience building agenda. And finally, very brief session to end today's webinar on this research topic. The first session, as I said, we will start with quiz. I would like ask Mio to share the poll, and you will have chance in 3 minutes to answer 6 questions, which will not only used as a icebreaker or will warm us for the discussion, but also I think that answering to these questions will be interesting for you, and you will see the other dimension why it is important to build resilience. So the first question is, which of the following is not a hydrometeorological hazard? You have selection of 4 answers, whether they're floods, storm surge, earthquake, or typhoon. Then what is the most frequent and costly hydrometeorological hazard? Avalanche, flood, drought, or tsunami? The third question is, according to the UNHCR, how many people have migrated because of weather-related disaster like droughts, floods? 2 million, 5.5 million, 15.5 million, or 21.5 million. The fourth one, it's the estimation of FEMA that 13 million Americans live within one. And the other study estimates 41 million to live within one. What is that? Flood zone, mudslide zone, nuclear power plant fallout zone, or coastal flooding zone? Identify the deadliest flooding event in Europe during the last 7 decades. And the final one, what is the average annual loss due to flooding in Europe?
Okay, you will have to give your answers, choices, and then submit your answers.
We are not testing any knowledge, but we really want to have your feedback, because awareness raising and sensitization about the topic, it's the initial step how to build the resilience, either on the level of the policy and decision makers or at the level of practitioners, experts, and beneficiaries in the communities. 30 seconds more.
Okay, we are there. I'm sharing the results now.
Okay, which of the following is not a hydrometeorological hazard? One person, actually 5% replied correctly. The earthquake, it's not hydrometeorological hazard. We will see in a couple of minutes the typology of hydrometeorological hazards. What is the most frequent and costly hydrometeorological hazards? 6 people answered correctly. Flood. It's causing the biggest damages and losses to the countries and societies. According to UNHCR, 21.5 million people are migrating because of the weather-related disasters, and additional info might be of interest. Based on the World Bank study, until 2050, 30 million of people potentially can migrate from Central Asia to Europe or to northern part of other continents due to the changing climate and the extreme temperatures and powerful precipitations. FEMA, no correct answer. 13 million or 41 million Americans live in 100-year flood zone. It is the, how to say, it was confirmed practically that all of us will experience at least one 100-year flood zone in our lives. In Skopje in 2016, we had 1,000 year flash flood. That doesn't mean that the next one will be in additional 1,000 years, but the quantity of water was very, very high and powerful. The deadliest flooding event was 1953 North Sea flooding in Netherlands and Belgium. And the annual average loss, there were no correct answer, is 12 billion euro for Europe during the last 4 decades. Thank you very much for your contribution and participation. Now we will continue with the essentials of the hydrometeorological hazards. They are process or phenomenon of atmospheric, hydrological, or oceanographic nature that may cause of loss of life, injury, and other health impacts, property damage, loss of livelihood, services, social and economic disruption, and environmental damage. This is the definition of these hazards. And their impacts can be classified as human impacts, loss of life, injuries, economic impacts, property damage, infrastructure loss, or environmental impacts, like habitat destruction, ecosystem disruption, and degradation of the environment. They can be atmospheric, hydrological, or oceanographic. On this slide, you can see the basic types, like typhoons and hurricanes, thunderstorms, hailstorms, flash floods, tornadoes, blizzards, heavy snowfall, avalanches, coastal storm surge, drought, and heat waves and cold spells. In Europe, except for the tropical cyclones, all of them are on the disaster profile agenda. On this slide, we are seeing the powerful impact of these hazards. On this slide, we have we can see 80, 1999 decade, and then 2000, 2019. In correlation, we can see that the floods and storms are dominating the hazard profile, with the last 2 decades having the more than 3,000 and more than 2,000 storms. In comparison, reported disaster number, it's almost doubled. Affected population, it's increased, and losses also due to the disasters are increasing. That means that these trends, given the climate change projections and consequences of changing climate, can be doubled or tripled in near future. During the last 2 decades, we had several significant hydrometeorological disasters, like European heat wave in 2003, which maybe from this distance in time was below the radar, but more than 30,000 people died as a result of high temperatures, extreme temperatures in July in that period. Then we had unprecedented flooding in 2014 in May, when Cyclone Tamara delivered enormous flooding in greater parts of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, and Serbia, with damages and losses only in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia of more than $3.8 billion. 2 powerful flash floods in our country in 2015 and 2016. In 2016, we had the highest disaster loss of life following the Skopje earthquake in 63 to 22 people. And the cumulative damages of only these 2 events was more than $127 million. Severe drought in EU in 2018, with the largest area ever affected on the continent. COVID-19 floods in 2021, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands with unprecedented flooding, and where even the most monitored, observed, and forecasted river in the world, River of Rhine, delivered deadly flooding of parts of its river flow. And droughts in Europe in July 22, where significant part of Western Europe was affected. 2023, it's considered to be one of the extraordinary years in terms of disasters. You can see that we had 399 events globally, which is more than cumulative 369 events from last 2 decades until 2022. Europe was ranked at the 3rd place in terms of number of events. Floods and storms were again dominating the hazard profile. And the price tag of the disaster cost and damages for this year was more than 250 billion euros, with Turkey earthquake having the toll of $45.5 billion. But this amount is bigger than the GDP, annual GDP of Portugal or New Zealand. So it started with the floods in northern Italy, then Emilia-Romagna region, affecting 20,000 people, 13 people lost their lives, and submerging thousands of hectares. Unprecedented extreme temperature for month of July. This is the highest month, the highest temperature recorded ever in July. And from June, July last year until April, each month was with higher temperature than recorded before, and practically we have a streak of extreme temperatures and heat waves and extreme temperatures are dominating the hazard profile in the next years. Occurrence of so-called storm supercells in part of Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia. And there was a historic long-lived supercell storms with more than 1,200 kilometers long and delivering hailstones bigger than 14 centimeters. So a lot of damages and losses for the agricultural sector, especially. Flash floods in Slovenia, bringing destruction, more than $5 billion of immediate damages and losses, and during 48 hours, up to 275 millimeters of rain fell on the country, and 7 people lost their lives. Then in September, we had the powerful storm Daniel. You can see it started in Greece and continued to the northern Africa and the northern parts of Libya. We know that the destruction was caused in central Greece, in Thessalia, then in city of Derna, with more than 10,000 people died from the consequences of flooding, followed by outburst from 2 demolished dams. And for this storm, aside from the powerful impact, it is very interesting to see that the village of Zagora, record-breaking 754 millimeters of rainfall in just 18 hours. And I will give you an additional perspective to this. For example, London gets 585 millimeters annually, whether Thessalia gets 495 millimeters annually, meaning that 1 year's worth of rain fell in just 18 hours, bringing destruction to this part of the predominantly agricultural area of Greece. What is the situation in 2024? We, on the European continent, we opened the year with a number of super storms, and Storm Henk and Anneli in January delivered flooding of parts of France, UK, Ireland, northern parts of Europe. Then we had the hottest April on the record, and you can see this imagery on the situation with temperature in April. In addition, there was the 75 record fall of rain in Dubai, causing a havoc from the flash flood or flooding of Sao Paulo and southern parts of Brazil, and flooding in Kenya. Climate-related hazards are dominating the disaster trend. We can see that storms, floods, droughts, extreme temperatures, including wildfire, are claiming the largest economic losses. Only for 2022, based on the OECD study, we can see the storms contributed to the highest damages losses, floods, and extreme temperatures, but the trend is constant. Annual economic losses in Europe for the last 4 decades, you can see that 2021 was the record year in terms of damages and losses, whether in 2022, the 30-year moving average was at the highest level, also claiming the increased trend of consequences from hydrometeorological hazards. What is the future? We can believe or not believe in global warming, but there are increasing flooding, especially in the coastal areas. Simpsons in their sitcom, they're saying that they predicted many of the recent happening in the world's history, and this is one image of Bart saying that this is the hottest summer of my life. His father Homer is saying this is the coldest summer of the rest of your life. And what is the climate future for Europe? Based on the 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, there are 4 key risks. Heat, with delivering mortality and morbidity of the people and ecosystem disruption due to heat, loss in agricultural production due to combined heat and droughts, water scarcity across sectors, and increased flooding and flash flooding with the increased magnitude on the people, economies, and infrastructure. You can see different regions in Europe. Mediterranean regions, for example, it's the most exposed to changing climate, and then the continental region. And we will see that extreme temperatures, intensive flooding, intensive rains, droughts, water scarcity are one of the hazards that we will face in the near future. And based on the increased temperature, practically we are also living the first scenario of IPCC, where the temperature was increased above 1.9 in comparison, comparing to the pre-industrial era. Climate hazards, we can see that based on the analysis of cities, parts of the global covenant of mayors, we have extreme heat with main contributor to disasters, heavy precipitation, droughts, water scarcity, and floods and sea level rise. And it is expected to have the highest increase or frequency of hydrometeorological hazards. We are also starting to feel the consequences of so-called black swan events. They are the events that are beyond normal expectation, so rare, even the possibility that it might occur is unknown. They have as a catastrophic impact when it does occur, and it is explained in hindsight if it were actually predictable. Why they are called black swan? Because until 19th century, they were believed that there is no black swans, that all of the swans are white. But during one expedition to Australia, the first black swan have been seen, and practically it is very rare in the future to have black swans. And these are the events that are bringing high consequences, but very low probability of occurrence. So like the financial crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, or for example, the example of black swan would be a tsunami in the Adriatic Sea basin. This is my favorite saying of one futurologist from France. We are in the position of a tourist who is planning a journey with the help of a guidebook. that is already out of date. In these times of post-normal uncertainty, climate change consequences, and state of polycrisis, it is really what we have done, risk assessment, risk plans. They're already out of date because we are seeing dynamics in the nature, we are seeing increased consequences from the climate change, and that is why we need to spilling over of different types of crises, and that is why we need to update our guidebook, and that is why resilience is brought on the agenda as one of the systemic approach how to maintain the function of the systems to respond and smart and sustainably recover from the disaster events. Practically, resilience is defined by United Nations DRR office. It's the ability of the system, community, or society exposed to hazards to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt to, transform, and recover from the effects of a hazard in a timely and efficient manner, including through the preservation and restoration of its essential structures and functions through the risk management. So practically, that is why resilience, it's one paradigm that is bringing us in the area of building preventive approach to hazards and risks, and to have a proactive role as a society and as individuals. Why resilience matters? We are facing risk on a daily basis. I mentioned a lot of disaster events, but you can imagine that there are thousands of small scale events are happening throughout the countries, throughout the continents, that are really eroding the resilient texture of the communities. For example, like hailstorms during the summer months when all the agricultural production can be lost, or some very localized flooding or flash flooding impacting the local communities. Risks are changing. As a result from the changing climate, there is an increase of the level of the water in the oceans, then the number of coastal floods are increased. For example, the whole area, the main railroad and transport corridor in the northeast part of the USA will be flooded if one of the scenarios of climate change will happen. Then we have increased water scarcity and droughts. You can just remember the drought in California for months, for years, where they started to apply innovative approach with black balls, how to keep the level of water in their water reservoirs. As I said, the current state in the world is increasingly complex with many unpredictable risks, with many crises, the state of polycrisis, and where the various cascading risks are influencing and resulting in spilling over to other sectors where, for example, the cybersecurity can also cause flooding or cause outbursting of a dam. Therefore, there is a set of international mechanisms and regional framework for sustainable and resilient development, which are practically giving us the main direction, the main development pathway, how the societies, countries, and communities should develop in order their development to be within the sustainable and resilient fora. Considering the disaster risk reduction, the central central mechanism is the Sendai framework for DRR 2015-2030, with the aim to increase the resilient development of the countries and society, to acknowledge the whole of government and all of society approach to risk reduction. Also, Sendai framework has 7 objectives and 4 priorities. For example, 4 priorities are in the area of understanding the risk governance, investments in risk reduction, or preparedness and response and recovery, applying the principle of build back better. Considering the innovation, it is also part of the Sendai framework, and it calls for the use of and expansion of thematic platform of cooperation, such as global technology pools or global system to share know-how, innovation, and research and ensure access to technology and information on disaster risk reduction. It's a combination of innovative ideas, and unity is the key to unlock the transformational response to escalating climate and disaster risks. Next to the Sendai framework is the Sustainable Development Goals. At the core of disaster resilience are SDGs 1 on no poverty, 11 sustainable cities and communities, or 13 on climate action. There is no separate SDG on disaster risk reduction, but it is part of the SDGs in the indicators and objectives to be approached. Whether for innovation, there is a SDG 9 on industry innovation and infrastructure, where in innovation, it's modus operandi how to achieve this sustainable development. Paris Agreement from 2015 is the global agreement that it's aiming to decrease the temperature through the rise of the temperature through the incorporation of mitigation and adaptation measures and actions. There is no separate article on DRR or on innovation, but in Article 8, there is a set of objectives that should be achieved through implementation of risk reduction and adaptation actions. For example, like emergency preparedness, then comprehensive risk assessment, risk insurance, risk pooling, early warning systems, and decrease of damages and losses, etc. So practically each of these objectives are related to certain priority of Sendai framework or to a certain SDG from the Sustainable Development Agenda for all. On the continental level, on the level of Europe and EU, we have several other regional mechanisms like the European Forum for Disaster Risk Reduction Roadmap 2021-2030, where innovation from all sectors of society are beneficial, and technological innovation has a distinctive value for building the resilience of the society of communities. Then we have the 5 goals for achieving resilience of EU, a solid understanding of disaster risk, including the economic, environmental, and social impacts, will be supported by research and innovation. EU Green Deal, also it's based on the sustainable development and adaptive and innovative development, and the adaptation strategy, it's within the texture of the fabrics of the importance of adaptation, where it's one of the triple dividends of adaptation, resulting in multiple co-benefits for the nature-based solutions and disaster prevention. Dialogue and innovation can greatly increase the climate resilience for the agenda of the countries. Practically, we can see the nexus of adaptation, risk reduction, and innovation in this sense. Importance of resilience to hydrometeorological hazards. On these slides, we can see some of the main points of why it is important to integrate the resilience, why we are preventing and responding or recovering from hydrometeorological hazards. As mentioned, it supports the sustainable development, and really one event with this multi-billion damages and losses, it's really impacting the development, and really it's destroying the development gains. It's enhancing the transformative and adaptive capacity of the society and communities. So practically, it's boosting the proactive approach to reduction of the risk. Efficient resource management, especially for ecosystem, nature, and human, financial, material, technical resources. A resilient society and communities are economic viable and economic stable. So practically, implementation of measures contributing to economic stability. safeguarding homes and households. The biggest impact is on the communities, on the household level, for the citizens, for the farmers and vulnerable communities. And efficient and effective resilience building is minimizing the impact from disasters, either climate or from other risks. And that is why it is important to invest in resilience. Until recently, there was a motto of disaster risk management that every dollar or every euro invested in prevention can save up to $14 or 14 euros in response. So practically, this is the fiscal aspect of why we need proactive risk reduction. And this is the final slide for the first session, why it is important to build resilience for hydrometeorological hazards. You can see on this slide that we have practically pre-disaster phase, disaster phase, and post-disaster phase, and we have 4 cycles of the DRM, 4 phases of the DRM cycle: prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. And practically building resilience is part of each phase. During the prevention, comprehensive risk and hazard assessments, implementation of preventive and mitigative measures to reduce the exposure, to reduce the adverse impact of hazards, of existing or emerging risk, to reduce the vulnerability to this set of hazards. Within the preparedness, it's a wide set of actions, like building culture of resilience. So everyone is responsible for building its own resilience as an individual. Awareness raising, sensitization of key policy and decision makers, education of people and professionals, professional trainings to gain new knowledge and skills for responders, development people-centered early warning system that will bring the information to every member of the communities in a timely, effective, and efficient manner, or to create comprehensive and inclusive preparedness plans to ensure readiness and to ensure timeliness of the response. And finally, within the response and recovery phase, resilience building is related to the coordination of the immediate response efforts, focus on early recovery and resilient restoration and reconstruction, applying the Build Back Better principle while learning from the past events to improve future resilience. That is the transformational dimension of resilience building. Every lessons learned should lead to improvement of the systems to be better prepared, to be resistant to same or similar type of disasters. I will stop sharing just to go to the second slide. I hope you find this intro presentation interesting. If you have any questions or comments, you can, at this stage, you can just write it in the chat section. Otherwise, we will have a dedicated Q&A at the end of the webinar. The second session is on current trends and challenges in the management of hydrometeorological risk. We started.
Vasco, thank you. I have a question. Is possible?
Okay. Yeah.
One question about. So sorry for my delay because I have stay in another training, and but it's very interesting that you say in this training, and I have a one question. I think that you say in these slides are well, it's okay. I am agree with you. But do you think that is necessarily a new European regulation for this measures? Is necessary? Do you think that is necessary this regulation, European regulation for that?
Oh, it is a tough question. We need, first of all, my background is legal. I'm a lawyer. I finished the Faculty of Law, but for more than 15 years, I'm in the area of disaster risk reduction and crisis management. So on one side, I believe that the policy and regulatory framework should be updated regularly, but considering the implementation and considering the proactive approach, I think that the existing corpus, the existing policy and regulatory framework, is sufficient for effective and efficient implementation of these measures and actions. So I know that at the EU level, we have a civil protection and DRR. They are still, it's not a responsibility of EU, but still they are on the level of the member states. I think that with this adoption of practically with the participation and alignment with the global mechanisms and frameworks, as well as with policy development, I think that there is a sufficient basis for effective risk reduction, since the risk needs to be reduced, in my opinion, from bottom-up approach from the communities, regions, countries, and then at the EU level. And I believe that based on the experience, at least in my country, in my region, there was effective and efficient support through the civil protection mechanism and use of rescue resources. So sometimes the policy and regulatory changing and reform might be complex, taking a lot of period of time with a lot of stakeholders. But I believe that even the minimum regulation could provide a basis for a successful and effective prevention. In my opinion, it's more how to change the culture of the stakeholders, of the people, rather than, and to ensure whole of government, whole of society approach, rather than having this regulated in many laws and bylaws. I hope my answer is suiting your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your answer and for your experience. Thank you.
If no other comment at this stage, we can proceed with the second. Now we will dive deeper into the understanding the challenges and trends in hydrometeorological risk management, to identify what are the key challenges faced by the local governments. Jana mentioned in her introductory statements the importance of the local government, local health stakeholders, communities, because they're the first to reduce the risk, and in all of the disaster events, the response is starting from the local level. And briefly, to explain what is the potential pathway for resilience building, what is the way forward. You can see on this image that disasters are collaborating better than people are, better than the governments, communities, and other stakeholders. And given the topic, I would like kindly ask Mia to run the second poll. We have 3 questions for you to provide your input. As I said, we are not testing knowledge, but we would like to collect your feedback in order to better understand the dynamic of the event. So the first one, it's a single answer question. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge for innovative resilience building at the local level? You have limited resources and funding, inadequate innovation ecosystem, access to data and technology, or coordination and governance. What is necessary for successful innovation for resilience to hydrometeorological hazards at local level? Localized understanding and customization, community engagement and ownership, effective communication and collaboration with innovators, or all of the above? And which technology do you think has most potential to improve resilience? Big data, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, or cellular networks and 5G? So we have 2 minutes for very brief, it's not quiz, but it's poll. Few more seconds.
Okay,
I think we can end the poll now.
Okay.
So what is the biggest challenge? Coordination and governance. It's very interesting observation by you. There is no correct answer on this, but the limited resources and funding in many studies and research articles are noted as one of the primary challenges to innovative resilience building, not only for disasters, but also for other aspects of life. And inadequate innovation ecosystem, which is very true. It is, how to say, it is a need to create an opportunity for development of the innovation ecosystem and for collaboration between the innovation fora and the businesses and governance. What is necessary for successful innovation? All of the above. We need to have local understanding and customization of our solutions. We need to engage community and build the ownership with the communities. Effective communication and collaboration. In many countries, in many cities, there are two separate forests, two separate worlds, you know, these innovation hubs, innovation startup centers, and the government authorities, municipalities, ministries. And I don't think that we have a sufficient synergy between two of them, at least in our country, in our region. And which technology is the best, in your opinion? Big data analytics and artificial intelligence have 43% of your answers, with cellular networks and 5G. Me personally, I'm a fan of the big data analytics because I believe that many solutions can be found in the data domain, but we are witnessing the initial increasing role of the artificial intelligence. Not only like ChatGPT for writing articles and essays and studies, but also for building resilient measures and resilient societies. In the same discussion, we mentioned that hydrometeorological risks, they are significant threats to the communities globally. Disaster impacts from these hazards is the highest at the local level, and 70% of the damages are being borne by the private sector. And that is why we need the municipalities as the first preventers and first responders. Climate change is making these events to be more intense and more frequent. And in order to have the effective and efficient system, we need to understand this risk, and we need to understand the trends to anticipate the risk and threats and the consequences. Increased number of, what are the challenges? Increased number of disasters. We see that the trend is increasing, the damages and costs are increasing, not only because of the more frequent disasters, but also because of the more expensive assets and the price of the assets during the recent years. Increased number of population, it's being exposed and affected to this risk. population growth and density, rapid urbanization and degradation of the environment, coupled with rising consumption, climate change impact by increased greenhouse gas emissions, straining resources and exposing more people to climate-related risk. For example, economic downturns increase poverty and inequality, limiting access to resilient resources, while ecosystem destruction like deforestation removes natural barriers against extreme weather, heightening the community vulnerability. And in many places in the world, in many cities, most at-risk communities live in most at-risk areas with substandard quality of life. Growing population and urbanization, consequently, it's increasing the risk from hydrometeorological hazards because there is a changed built environment within the space, within the territory. And with the increased vulnerability of the population, then also the risk, the impact, it's higher, the magnitude. For example, many resilience trends following the COVID-19 pandemic at the community level are being influencing the overall resilience of the population, but increased income, decreased income, decreased access to services, and as I said, many crises, energy crisis and other crises throughout the world. It's really affecting the resilience and the capacities of the communities to respond and to adapt to these hazards. Therefore, the impact is of the higher level. The increased vulnerability, as I said, can be seen also in terms of cascading impacts of interconnected global challenges. And that is why we need to have a multi-hazard, multi-risk approach, not to have a silo approach, fragmented view of the things, but we need to take comprehensive risk assessment and comprehensive risk reduction. Increased losses and damages given the number of events and values of assets. I mentioned this as an example. The total cost of 28 weather-related events in the States last year was $92.9 billion. The number and cost of disaster are increasing over time due to a combination of increased exposures, values at risk of possible loss, vulnerability, how much damage the intensity cause, and the climate change, which is increasing the frequency of some type of extremes that lead to billion-dollar disasters. Another thing is the lack of risk transfer mechanism. For example, in the States, they have an average 60% of insured properties and assets, and they are saying that the damages and losses in total number were covered by 60% from the insurance companies, whether like from the floods in Southeast region or the earthquake in Turkey. This proportion and contribution to the insurance companies less than 10%, meaning that the real impact, real consequence of disasters is being borne by the states and the communities and the citizens themselves. Challenges in hydrometeorological risk management, complexity of predicting extreme weather events with accuracy. So we have change patterns, we have intensification of events, inadequate infrastructure and resources for early warning systems. Still, in many parts of the world, in many countries, we are facing with the lack of sufficient observation and forecasting resources, digitalized solutions, or human and material technical resources, limited access to data and information in vulnerable regions. Data and information is a basis for effective and efficient risk reduction, starting with data gathering, analysis, and risk assessment. And with this limited access and limited availability of data, really pre-disaster baseline cannot be established in order to build responsive and effective and efficient policies and actions. Difficulties in coordinating response efforts across multiple stakeholders and sectors. It was also part of your observation during the poll. It's still fragmentation of DRR in the countries. Who is responsible, whether it is a civil protection or Ministry of Emergency Situations or Protection and Rescue Directorate. So what is the role and responsibility of the municipalities and the cities of the local level governments? And the last thing is the ongoing struggle to integrate climate change adaptation into existing risk management frameworks. If we see still there is insufficient integration of climate change projections, climate models within the risk and hazard assessments, because only if we can understand the climate uncertainty and climate future, we can establish a comprehensive risk assessment, which will result in adequate response planning. And still the adaptation of the climate change area, it's less I would say, utilized than the mitigation. The focus is on reduction of greenhouse gases emissions rather than the adaptation to the changing climate and how to create, design, and implement adaptive solutions, which at certain stage will reduce the number of will reduce the consequences of the number of events. Emerging trends, using of data and models, deploying resilient strategies to safeguard lives and infrastructure. So data is starting to get importance and it's higher on the resilience building agenda. Also, we have multi-sector stakeholder engagement, collaborative strategies, either on EU, regional, national level. Utilization of data-driven approaches and innovations, remote sensing, sensor network, big data analytics. It is still at the very rudimentary level in the most of the European countries, especially in our region. But there are individual actions, individual solutions to this. Advancement in climate modeling and forecasting, given the complexity, there are certain advancement in the modeling, in the projections, and most importantly, how to project these changes, these models with the higher level of granularity, how to localize them on the territories of the municipalities or on the sub-regional level. Then integrated multi-risk, multi-hazard, multi-sector assessments. We need to understand the hazard, hydrometeorological hazard, what is the risk from this hazard, who and what is exposed, what is the level of vulnerability of the critical infrastructure and population, and what kind of preventive and mitigation measures and actions needs to be implemented, how to adapt to this emerging trend, and what kind of planning need to be being done. People-centered early warning systems. Early warning systems are getting more focus in the recent year. There is also a UN Secretary General initiative, Early Warning for All, which is intending to cover all the countries and territories globally until 2027 with early warning, multi-hazard early warning systems. And this early warning system needs to be people-centered to ensure that during the last mile of information, everyone in the communities will be informed with message and the form communication channel that will be understandable for them. And the last point is building the resilience of the critical infrastructure. We are transitioning from critical infrastructure protection to building resilience, meaning that there is not only protection, but we need to invest in the maintenance, in the operation, in the resources in order to have a functional critical infrastructure. For example, during the COVID-19 times, one of the examples was that the resources were not available, human resources, in many critical infrastructure systems because of the disease. Many of the HR were not able to, many of the workers were not able to work, which critically impacted the functioning of this infrastructure system. So we need to transition from protection to building resilience. Also, you will see later in the last session that innovation is one of the fundamental pillars for building resilience of critical infrastructure. Key challenges by local governments. As mentioned, these events are eroding the resilience texture of the society and communities, disrupt access and provision of local services, municipal infrastructure is affected, emergency services are overwhelmed, and especially like in COVID times, they don't have resources to respond to all, and the vulnerable populations are more at risk with exacerbation of existing and creating new social inequalities. Still, the focus is on response rather than prevention. We have still reactive disaster risk management rather than proactive with the focus on prevention and mitigation. We are facing policy and regulatory barriers and institutional architecture, meaning that still in many countries at the national level, the regulatory framework and policy framework is not finalized with the essential legislation, or the institutional architecture it's not designed to respond to these challenges. Risk and hazard assessment as documented tools, they're insufficiently mainstreamed into the strategies and development plans at the national and local level. Data and information deficit, then data fragmentation, and not having issues in access to data forms and knowledge on data analysis by the civil protection authorities, and knowledge on civil protection risk reduction by the data scientists and innovators. We have insufficient climate change adaptation integration with resilience building. Still, the adaptation, it's like a separate domain rather than the part of the resilience building forum. For risk-informed development, this is result from not integrating the risk and hazard assessments or resilience building into the national local development, and the policies and decisions that are made are not risk-informed. And the significant exposure of the vulnerable population and infrastructure because of the population growth, density, dynamics, as well as the changing built environment. For example, at the European level or US level, the issue of aging infrastructure is also on the top of the agenda, meaning that most of the complex infrastructure systems were built 56 years ago and need to be reconstructed or improved. Coordination and communication among stakeholders, warning dissemination and risk communication, reaching everyone in communities. Early warning systems are, for example, are under the national umbrella, and the information it's getting to the municipality but not being disseminated to the communities, as I said, informing through the channel that will be understandable for all. Resource constraints, inequality, discrimination, and marginalization, especially during the recent years. Not having a gender sensitive and inclusive of disability risk reduction, community engagement and awareness. Private sector, it's still not seen as a valuable partner in risk reduction measures. As I said, more than 70% of damages and losses on the average are being borne by the private sector. And finally, the main message, in my opinion, would be that the resilience building is still not an imperative across the continent at the top national level, even though we can find a lot of policies that are referring to resilience. What is the way forward to shift the paradigm from reactive to proactive disaster risk management, to adapt to intensifying impacts of the events, localization of risk reduction to be well embedded within the structure and the competencies of municipalities, of local level governments. Their transition from first responders to first preventers. Municipalities should engage not only to equip themselves for respond, for the firefighters, for the emergency responders, but also to equip with the knowledge and resources how to prevent, how to mitigate the risk. To improve the assessment of the existing and anticipating new and emerging risk. Until now, the risk assessment is linear. So we are looking back what have happened in 20, 30 years. And based on that, we are building our risk evaluation and risk reduction strategies. But following the black swan events, the pandemic crisis, the current uncertainty and complexity in the world, it is necessary to start to anticipate the future, to look into the future and to anticipate what risk potentially can appear on the horizon. Utilization of data-driven approaches and innovative technologies, and fostering collaborative solutions, which is the basis of everything. Modus operandi, how to achieve this, several actions. We need to understand the local risks with the dimension of risk, vulnerability, exposure, capacities, as it is prescribed with the Sendai Framework Priority 1. We need to run local level community inclusive and participatory risk assessment, also under the first priority. Design of effective and efficient mitigation adaptation plans, priority 1 and 2. Long-term transformative risk governance solutions, priority 2. Design and application of digital solutions for evidence-based and risk-informed decision-making and planning throughout the 4 priorities. Impact-based warning and forecasting, to be prepared well before the warning or before the forecast is issues, how to respond and what to do, priority 3. And building inclusive adaptive capacities, like capacity development, learning, awareness, infrastructure, upgrading, ecosystem restoration. That is priority 3 and 4. So you can see that everything is linked, and it is based on the global approach how to achieve sustainable and resilient development at the societal or at the community level. Fostering cross-sector collaboration, we have key stakeholders, national, local governments, innovators, either through the private sector or academia, research and development entities, NGOs and communities and risk. And each of these stakeholders can apply some of these actions. Governments can regulate or fund mechanisms to support initiatives. Private sector can invest and adopt resilience measures in their operations, supply chains to ensure business continuity, which was one of the top priority during the pandemic crisis, for example, or to invest in technological solutions and innovations. Academia and RDIs, they can conduct research and analysis, provide technical expertise, or develop new methodologies like foresight methodologies that will include innovation solutions and tools. NGOs, they have the strongest asset in the community resources and knowledge. They can advocate for inclusive strategies and policies. They can advocate for the vulnerables, and they can do the community outreach and education. And communities at risk, they can establish grassroots initiatives, social safety nets. They can apply local and traditional knowledge, and they can participate in planning, decision-making processes, and innovation, design, and application. And finally, we have several good practices to achieve these objectives. On this slide, on this image, you can see the interrelation between the Sendai and SDGs, goals and objectives. So practically they are well integrated. New Urban Agenda Monitoring Framework, it's also measuring the achievement of the resilience and achievement of the application of innovative solutions. UN-DRR, Disaster Resilient Scorecards, provides a set of assessment that local governments can apply for assessment of their disaster resilience. And it is structured around the 10 essentials of making cities resilient of UN-DRR. And we have Making Cities Resilient 2030, which is a unique cross-stakeholder initiative for improvement of local resilience through advocacy, sharing knowledge and experiences, establishing mutual reinforcing city-to-city learning networks, then establishment of resilience hubs, which can share and which can disseminate the good practices and lessons learned and can support other cities in this sense. And through delivering a clear 3-stage roadmap to urban resilience, it provides tools, access to knowledge, monitoring, reporting tools, and support the cities on their journey to reducing risk and to building resilience. And it's really an opportunity for the urban communities to be a part of this network and not only to learn, but also to share their best practices and knowledge. And we have the Think Hazard as a global platform which can provide immediate information and data on the exposure and vulnerability to certain risk and hazards, and which can provide a valuable input if there is no complex or comprehensive sufficient risk information or data on certain territories. So practically, you can see that at the local level, you have these are only number of platforms or of instruments how to boost the local level resilience building, but also there is a initiatives and mechanisms beyond this slide. Some of them are part of the training guidebook, but some of them can be reached interactively and virtually. Thank you very much for your patience to be with me during the presentation of the second session. So if you have any immediate reflection or feedback while I'm changing the slides for the last session, please raise your hand or enter the statement into the chat box. Okay, then we will proceed with the last presentation. I believe it will be of greatest interest for you. It's on the innovation solutions, how to build resilience.
Vasco, may I just interfere?
Yeah, please.
Yes. So in one of the slides where you have presented the key challenges faced by the local governments, very important topic that you have mentioned is data and information deficit. On one of the events under the COVALEX project, the shared interoperability standards and data platforms for integration of data from different stakeholders, but also the data platforms that are now in establishment by the European Commission were discussed. So maybe just for our audience to be aware that the challenge is not a local challenge, let's say, on the region of NALAS, but this is a challenge that has been faced by the European institutions as well. And that's why the new data platforms are in preparation, which means that all the data that is coming from different sources will be operable and interoperable, harmonized in a way that they can be coherently used for developing applications, but also for planning and decision making and any measures that needs to be taken. The local data here are of great importance, and once we on the local level understand that the importance of the local data are crucial in preparing the plans, even if the plans are designed on a different level, not on the local level, or somebody else is designing the plans and measures. Without the local data, there will be a gap and a lot of vulnerability cannot be identified. What you have mentioned here is the poor risk-informed development. But they also hear that if we do not think on coherent way on integrating the actions on the local level towards the same objectives, then we can also make another risk and pose the citizens on another risk level. So I think this was a very important slide that you have shared. Of course, you mentioned the cross-sector collaboration, which is of crucial importance. And this is what NALAS is also pushing for, inclusion of the local governments from the decision-making process on the central level participation and multi-level governance, not just the implementation, but also the planning process to be a participatory with the citizens, with the local government, and with all the important stakeholders. So just as a point that I really wanted to share with the audience, since mainly the audience is a local government and people from external innovation hubs, startups. And I believe that this recording will be then used for all of them. So this horizontal, but also vertical cooperation, and also cooperation on the EU level with the data platforms for interoperability and the use of the same data for different development of measures, decisions, and applications. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Very valuable input and feedback. Correctly, the data, it's the main problem, but
that's all from my side.
Thank you. But also we have a data scarcity, so we have type of data, how to be collected, in which format, how to be shared, access to data. So there are a lot of other challenges regarding the data sets, and the intention is on the other side. The intention is really the local government to be the key stakeholders within these efforts, because as I said, to move from responders to preventers. The future is not predictable, but it can be shaped. On this slide, we can see imaginative cards of future done in France, end of 19th century, how they were perceived the year of 2000. You can see that there is some kind of a whale bus and flying firefighters. Maybe not in 2000, but later on, we are having the similar design, similar solutions for submarines and drones that are extinguishing the fire. So practically, we can see the innovation for resilience, which refers to creation and implementation of new solutions to help community system organizations to better anticipate, withstand, adapt to, and restore from adverse events, particularly those related to natural hazards and climate change. Why it is important to innovate? Because would you cross the street based on the information that was 5 minutes old? No, you are waiting either for the signal from the traffic light, or you're making observation, visual observation, when it's safe to cross the street. And that is why it is important to innovate, not to have to update the information, to have a timely, effective, and efficient informations and solutions. This is bringing us to the principle of innovation for resilience. The main principle, the foundation, it's to engage communities of innovators, because it will foster the creativity, collaboration, and impact solution making through the leveraging of diverse expertise and accelerating the co-creation of innovative responses to challenges like climate change and disaster resilience or hydrometeorological hazards as a topic of our webinar. In the Innovation for Resilience Fora, you will hear a lot about co-creation, collaboration, innovation ecosystem, data-driven decision-making or data important database solutions, etc. So really, this is the foundation, and it is important to bring different stakeholders and to work for one objective. Collaboration and co-creation, it's also important because they foster collaboration among diverse stakeholders, including governments, communities, academia, the private sector, NGOs. They will be on board to co-create solutions that will reflect the local needs and context, as well as local solution to local challenges. Anticipation and adaptation. Innovation should anticipate the future challenges and adapt to changing circumstances, enabling communities to proactively address emerging risks and vulnerabilities, use of technology that will be understandable and that will be widely that will be used by the communities, that will be simple for application, data-driven decision making based on the analysis, based on the collected data. Then we need to support the decision making and policy making process. Scalability and sustainability, meaning that these solutions not be only innovation solutions per se, but it needs to be replicated and extended and scale up in other communities, in other regions, or for other hazards, other hydrometeorological hazards. Inclusion and equity. We need to include all of the people in the community, representatives of different groups. Equity, meaning that the solutions that we will be proposed with these tools, with these IT solutions, will be for all and will suit the needs of all. Policy and governance need to establish a framework, a basis for developing this innovative resilience building ecosystem and solutions. And finally, the iterative development should provide the continuous development based on the lessons learned and based on the piloting and results. You can see that the deer isn't crossing the road is crossing the forest. It's about the perception. So when we are innovating, we should take different perception than the standard one, and we should really engage on the resilience building journey in order to create solutions that will be beneficial for all in the communities. Innovation technologies in focus. You can see a slide of top 10 emergency management trends and innovations for 2023. In this session, I will try to bring a very, very brief insight on one of the most usable technologies. And in that endeavor, we will start with geoinformation systems that are capturing, storing, analyzing, managing, and presenting various types of data. They can be used to look at high risk and disaster-prone areas for floods, for prevention, for preparedness, response, recovery. It can include modeling how flood disaster will spread, create evacuation routes, planning the response, supporting the recovery efforts, and creation of up-to-date area maps, support damage and assessment, high-need areas, relief, etc. So on this image here, you will see a flood model study of Skopje. Based on the GIS solution, you can see on the left the satellite map of Skopje, and on the right, it's the consequences of the pessimistic scenario of demolition of Kozjak Dam. So different colors means different depth of the flooding wave. In the region, there are several good examples on GIS platforms and how they're utilized for disaster risk reduction. I will start with the assessment platform for North Macedonia, which is a web-based system for risk and hazard assessment and has several components that can be seen on the slide. The e-assessment for the state and the 81 municipality in the city of Skopje. Then we have several web-based and databases like the assessment component, registry of critical infrastructure, register of resources, population data, historical events, eco-DRR, nature-based solutions, or national disaster database on damages and losses, which is in line with this Sendai framework monitor on damages and losses. It is operated by the crisis management system, and the crisis management system is one of the entities that are part of the national spatial data infrastructure, and it is beaming geo services to other institutions and to other users. Following the floods in Bosnia in 2000 and Herzegovina in 2014, disaster risk analysis system was developed, DRAS. It is a free online tool that provides access to scientific hazard data on floods, landslides, and earthquakes. Then it was extended with wildfires and mine situation, unexploded ordnance following the wars in 1990s. There are still a lot of minefields in the area, and practically projects the risk and hazard assessments and flood risk assessments in particular to the Google Maps, and connects data on precipitation and water level with an overview of exposed and vulnerable locations and populations. Also, the citizens can check whether their property is at risk of flooding for different scenarios. Disaster risk register in Serbia, it is a similar type of GIS platform. Just to comment that when we are talking about innovative solutions, rarely one solutions will not use the aspects or use the applications of other type of solutions. So there is a lot of combination between the GIS, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So practically they are not fragmented, they are not in silo, but there is a multi-solution approach, I would say. Disaster risk register, it's an interactive digital database that provides information on risk on specific locations. Unfortunately, it can be accessed only from a Serbian domain on internet, and it provides information on risk in real time, where, again, similar like in DRAS, you can check the exposure and vulnerability of your property or of your domain to existing hazards, existing risk. It is also used for improved urban planning and land management by the local governments, by the municipalities, but also it's being used by the emergency management sector on better and preparedness and response. For this system, it's very important to be open for general public in order to disseminate the information and to provide the citizens with the timely and verified correct information. European Flood Awareness System, EFAS, is the first operational system for monitoring and forecasting floods across Europe. Overviews and ongoing and forecasting floods up to 10 days in advance, and provides complementary added value information like probabilistic, medium range flood forecast, flash flood indicators, or impact forecasts. So practically proxy impact of the floods, proxy damages and losses that are based on this certain return period or quantity of rain. And EFAS keeps the Emergency Response Coordination Center informed about ongoing and possibly upcoming flood events across Europe in order to have continuous preparedness for a swift response to floods. Inform Risk, a global open source risk assessment for humanitarian crises and disasters. You can access the site and you can see the risk that is calculated in your country, for example. It can support decision about prevention, preparedness, and response. And the new model on informed climate change risk index, it's practically an upgrade and includes climate and socioeconomic projections. So what is the impact of different scenarios of climate change to the country and to the various levels of elements of risk. Disaster aware from the Pacific Disaster Center. It's a multi-hazard early warning, hazard monitoring, and risk intelligence platform that is free for NGOs and governmental organizations worldwide. It provides specialized situation analysis to be used, and some of these are generated automatically with advisory, or it can be customized for different type of users. So we can see one example, impact of Hurricane Florence on the transportation lifeline and potential road impacts and inland flooding in 2018. Another solution, IT solution, it's the Earth observation, remote sensing. It's about the collecting data from a distance, often by measuring reflected and emitted radiation. For this remote sensing used by satellites and other devices, there are a lot of challenges, like cloudiness in the sky, satellite path, speed of data collection. And that is why there should be always a backup in terms of technological solution or additional tool that can be used in that sense. Remote sensing is used to track hazards and predict weather. It can be used also to assess vulnerability before disaster happens or after, or during the response. You can see a lot of Copernicus satellite maps, for example, in this sense, like flash flooding in Skopje. Then following the event, the first imagery took place. What is the flooded area? What are the safe corridors for the evacuation of population and response of the responders? So it's very practical. It is used in the recovery phase also to assess floods, storms, and infrastructure damages and to monitoring recovery efforts. One advantage is that it can be used both in urban and rural locations with great granularity. And Copernicus is an EU program aimed at developing European information service that is based on satellite observation and in situ data. The objective is to monitor and forecast the state of the environment on land, sea, and the atmosphere, as well as to support climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies, effective emergency management, and improvement of the security of every citizens. Information provided can improve the response, citizen safety, people safety, what type of behaviors and procedures can be implemented, for example, following the analysis of the satellite imagery. Cloud computing, it is a broad concept that can be roughly described as the remote delivery of computing services over the internet. In other words, the machine processing the service does not need to be on site. It can be applied before and after disasters during the 4 phases of the cycle. For example, for data collection, analysis, and storage to enable business continuity, which is very important nowadays from alternate locations after disasters. And there are several challenges that we can identify in these terms: data security and data privacy, reduced visibility and control, complexity and opacity, and cloud migration issues. We have several components, platforms: the European Weather Cloud for analysis of information, cloud computing for business continuity, or large data sets to be processed more quickly in cloud using machine learning algorithms without on-site equipment. Big data and open data analytics. On this slide, we can see that data generation is currently skyrocketing. You can see that 41 billion messages is shared by WhatsApp users every minute, or more than 300,000 posts by Instagram users, 150,000 messages shared by Facebook users. On an annual level, we have 328 million terabytes of data that is created each day. A single terabyte could hold 1,000 copies of the Encyclopedia Britannica, but the 10 terabytes can hold the entire printed collection of the US Library of Congress. Big data are the large amounts of digital data that are continuously generated by the global population, and open data can be freely used, reused, and redistributed by anyone. Usually it is provided by the government entities. And big data can be used to better predict and manage flood risk, to understand what is the mobility and vulnerability of the population. It can support the better effective decision-making. Open data for resilient initiative is supporting and stipulating the open data use for resilient building purposes. It is a platform where the different data sets can be found. And on this image, we have the Virginia Flood Risk Information System, which is an open data hub, providing the information of flooding and coastal flooding events and data from the past events. In 2014, following the floods, we did the analysis on Twitter in that time, together with the colleagues from the Faculty of Information Technology. And more than 60,000 tweets were identified with the relevant hashtag. And we saw that the first tweet was Obrenovac's. It was quicker than the response from the emergency responders in Belgrade. And you can see the heat map area of Serbia and Southeast Europe and the States. So practically, and Russia in that time, most of the Twitter activities were in that sense. And it can be used for facilitating the response efforts. Another technology is the cellular networks and 5G, which is enhancing the hydrometeorological hazard management by enabling real-time data collection, communication, and improved response coordination, and provide the continuity of telecommunication services like Tor Mobile, which can provide the ultra-wideband 5G to any location, creating a mobile network and control center for drones and other solutions. Starlink provides a satellite-based internet connection. Telecom Sans Frontiers restored communication on site in the locations during the floods in Germany in 2021. With the EU-funded 5G Epicenter project, developed an ecosystem of tools and systems to demonstrate the benefits of 5G. Crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. Crowdsourcing is adding content to disaster maps, for example, adding certain information from the crowd, from the users. With the crowdfunding, it's used for raising funds, raising money for disaster victims, mainly in the recovery phase. Crowdsourcing via social media and mobile text messages can help spread information, establish communication, can support the analysis of the population vulnerability, exposure, and supporting the response. Google Crisis Response help people access trusted information and resources in critical moments, which is very important. For disaster recovery, victims can crowdsource data and images on their losses, on their needs, and it is really supporting the early recovery efforts. And crowdfunding can be done with GoDaddy, for example, with any platform, where the funds can be collected from the crowds and used for recovery, for example. Then application of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. They can be used to create detailed maps of vulnerable areas to meteorological hazards, to identify faulty infrastructure or the vulnerable population. They are used in risk mapping process, in data collection, mapping of exposed areas, built environment, where the population is. It is being used during the response phase for facilitation of the response efforts to the responders. Whether for the recovery, we have aerial surveying, damage assessment, livelihood and services restorations, and more insurance companies are using drones in order to handle the insurance claims. A couple of days ago, in Mount Everest, first Chinese drone have flown to the last camp, last base before the climbing, delivering the delivering the resources, but also collecting the waste from this camp. And practically this is the first ever flying drone at this altitude. Augmented reality and virtual reality, interactive technologies that can blend digital with real world. It is more and more used for preparedness. It is used also for response, for example, and for recovery needs. Crowd mapping system with augmented reality. Then there is a non-action, experience on flood prevention and anticipation, what is needed to be done before. Creation of augmented flood map, like in the image, to identify the safe evacuation routes or damaged infrastructure and any obstacles during the evacuation. And managing flood operations through forecast-based financing downstream a dam. If there is an outburst of a dam and flooding, then we can integrate the forecast-based financing provision and the augmented reality as a tool to support this process. Social media, similar with the others, with the crowdsourcing especially. It's about the technology that connects people, ideas, information through the internet. It's a vital tool to gather information because anyone can share messages, photos, and videos across the globe instantly. Twitter, now X, there are disaster alerts that have made the platform useful for emergency communications. Facebook has a safety check feature. And JRC, there is an open source software that decrypts social media messages to help manage risk and disasters. Also, there is a use of dedicated channels like on Telegram or other communication softwares, and use of chatbots for providing information during the response and recovery. 3D printing, which is technology on the rise. A bespoke service that shortens production time for parts with minimal resources. 3D printed models of the terrain in order to analyze the exposure and vulnerability. On this image, we can see the 3D printed automatic weather stations to re-establish or to improve the monitoring and forecasting system. 3D printing access approach can create tools, shelters, and solutions for floods, for example. Personal protective equipment for rescuers, like especially during the health crisis like COVID-19 pandemic, or there is even a house and social infrastructure units being 3D printed during the disaster recovery phase. Internet of Things, network of devices and sensors using technology to integrate systems, environments, and context better. Practically, sensors can allow for accurate flood forecast and near real-time data analysis. Internet of Things enables early warning systems by collecting real-time data and connecting data sources, sensors for informed decision-making, like bridging the risk assessments and preparedness and operational plans. And critical infrastructure can be protected through predictive maintenance by IoT and by application of sensors. Blockchain cryptocurrency. The main use is for response and recovery. It can be used for supply chain management, pre-project donor funding, cash programming, crowdfunding, and to create digital IDs for affected citizens where the systems, the usual services by the government entities cannot be provided. And more organizations globally are using blockchain to aid disaster payments. Artificial intelligence, it was also mentioned as one of the main tools, best tools for resilience building. It has several domains: automation, machine learning, machine vision, robotics, text, image, and audio generation. Microsoft developed a system that predicts natural disaster risk based on local conditions, enhancing preparedness and creating tailored response plans in India. We are using machine learning in hydrometeorological hazard modeling to analyze all these huge quantities of data, or artificial enabled natural disaster management platform, where The artificial intelligence is providing input and the chatbot is providing communication. There is a newest platform, it's EarthCare Climate, one-stop shop for easy data access and analytics of climate and severe weather. You can see the several layers like climate data, severe weather analysis, asset portfolio manager reports, and various types of reports in seconds. It is combined with the open data source for data. And finally, we have hackathons and gamification, which are the social coding events and using of game and gamification process and tools to improve or build new solutions for resilience, where different, maybe non-traditional actors or like youth, like other social groups or innovators can be brought at the table to create certain innovative solutions. So Hackathon, Hack Zurich 2021, Hackathon Coders Enhanced Relief Efforts during dangerous floods. In Skopje, we used foresight gamification to identify vulnerable sectors, helped water and disaster risk reduction. Water for Life in Strumica defined through the Foresight Explorer, defined the priorities for flood prevention and water management and water accessibility in southeast of the country. And the last one would be the urban resilience and climate change adaptation challenges, where the broader scope of citizens like students, innovators, individual citizens can provide a solution to a certain problem or a certain challenge. I mentioned a couple of challenges, but there are still challenges with implementation of innovation, technical limitations, lack of knowledge, resources, restrictive technical environment and integration, interoperability, which was mentioned by Anna, how to achieve the interoperability between different systems, between different entities, different countries, data requirements. Data is the basis of all. We need to have available data sets to be accessed, quality, timely, and relevant, and to be analyzed in an acceptable time framework. Data ownership and integrity may be one of the key questions about the privacy issues. Ownership, who owns the data? The mobile company owns our data, and they're using this for a big data analysis, but we cannot access this data. Then practical consideration, what is the scalability, high-tech versus low-tech solutions, funding, awareness raising in education, policy framework, institutional architecture, capacities, interest, and many more in that sense. Lessons learned. We should empower innovators through support, capacity building, resources, and partnerships with local government and private sector. We should sensitize them about the importance of risk reduction and resilience building. Innovative approaches are needed to develop disaster and climate resilient systems and communities. These technologies are contributors to building resilience to climate and disasters. Reliable data and advanced analytics are essential for informed decision-making and proactive risk reduction. We need to integrate the technologies with local and traditional knowledge to enhance the effectiveness. And the last lessons learned is scalability and flexibility to different sizes and types of hazards. So this is the last slide of today's presentation. The data's first law of the future. The future cannot be predicted because the future does not exist. We have only images what future would be. So thanks a lot for your dedication to stay at this webinar after 2 hours. I'm beyond the schedule, but I think that we still have a time for a feedback or for Q&A sessions. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Vasco. Thank you for the very interesting presentation. I hope that we have accomplished reach our goal to raise awareness about the potential new IT solution, digital approaches in disaster risk reduction. We will, after the webinar in the next days. We will share with all participants participants guide with information, more information, theoretical content, but also in presentation and link of the record from this webinar. So I hope that all interested participants will have opportunity to discover and search more information about the presented IT solutions. Do we have any questions, any observations from the participants? So please welcome, the floor is yours for your questions.
If you allow me, Mia, just to thank Vasco for the excellent presentations given, especially the several slides that he used at the end, providing more depth information on using the technology tools in this field, and mentioning the Earth Care, which is one of the very new, let's say, tool that is based on integration of data from multiple sources and using then big data analytics with the artificial intelligence tools for predicting and modeling. That is the tool, since I asked for a specific presentation with the team that has developed Earth Care. The tool is already in use mainly by the insurance companies. And the insurance companies are very much aware of the prediction modeling for their operations and business. So the tools are already developed for them, but of course they can be used by the local communities and by everyone else, by institutions as well. So some of the tools that Vasco mentioned are also developed in our region, in Southeastern Europe, or more precisely in the Western Balkan, which means that there are resources, there are capacities also here. And if we create this ecosystem of exchanging the ideas and knowledge, we can all gain more and be better protected and not so vulnerable. So thank you.
Hi, can I also
Yes,
discuss about the conference?
Yes,
yes. I'm Vlado Spiridonov. Let me briefly introduce myself. I'm from the Faculty of Natural Science and Mathematics. Actually, I'm teaching meteorology. And first of all, I would like to congratulate for your initiative. This is a very important global topic, but focus on the local importance, actually, how to transfer all this global severe weather disasters in light of the climate change. We know that it is very important to develop such platform to transfer from the global to local scale, as you mentioned. So I follow your discussion, and I fully agree with you that at our Earth planet, we are facing several disasters from the water, climate, and weather phenomena. So there is no boundaries between these disasters. So we need to be prepared, because in the future we will facing more and more frequent and more intense weather extremes. When we are talking about these weather extremes, we need to mention here that most of them are severe, but convective scale atmospheric processes actually, and flash flooding are one of the most important severe weather events that we need to respond correctly to this local scale phenomena and local scale hazards. So, because your topic is discussing about different different computer science platforms, I would like here, if you allow, you have time just to mention, to propose one initiative that we developed together here with the Faculty of Computer Sciences and Engineering, FINCI. Actually, we developed one platform, which is called the Novel Thunderstorm Alert System. That is the NOTAS system. It represents an advanced system that provides yearly warnings and alerts for such severe thunderstorms. This system is to enhance the accuracy and timeliness of this forecast and warnings to improve public safety and reduce this local scale severe impact like flash flooding and severe thunderstorm, lightning, and even tornadoes. And I would like here just to mention the key features of these components of NOTAS. It integrates the meteorological data from various sources, including weather satellite, radar data, weather stations, atmospheric sensors. The system is very flexible and adjustable to different initial data format from GFC models or from ECMWF, from the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting, and also employs different model platforms and high-resolution numerical weather models, such as the weather research forecast model, which are not non-hydrostatic, and really able to forecast the detailed atmospheric processes, which is very important to have in smaller integration or the smaller model domain. And now, by incorporating machine learning novel platform and algorithms in the color-coded format, NOTAS enhances the accuracy of thunderstorm predictions over different climatic and geographic regions, using this historical data and real-time observations. And this system actually develops algorithm to detect thunderstorm formations based on key meteorological or complex meteorological criteria and convective weather indexes, like temperature, humidity, atmospheric instability, moisture, and so on. And continuous real-time monitoring of weather conditions allows this sophisticated, promising tool, NOTAS, to track the onset of evolution of thunderstorm very effectively. And this enables the system to generate yearly warnings from global to regional to local scales rapidly, providing detailed information about the storm location, especially detection of the most severe areas and the local intensity and potential impacts. And I will soon finish with this very brief overview of the concept. The system customizes alerts for specific geographic regions, accounting for local weather patterns and variations. And then what is very important here, because actually you are coming not from this meteorological portion part, but just from this very important, actually, the very important part that you're discussing here, from the municipalities, from the governing, for governance, for organizational aspects, for managing, etc. The ensure effective communication, NOTAS establish a network to disseminate warnings to the public, emergency services, local authorities, and relevant stakeholders. The development of user-friendly mobile application also is planning soon, and it provides real-time alerts and safety instructions to residents in the affected areas. And now, just to point out, our alerts are issued on the hourly basis, highlighting a global severe weather overview, or regional or locally, because there is different modules of running the atmospheric models. in different computing modes like nested or large area single domain run, and issuing the categorical risk levels to 8 users in understanding the severity of the situation for each day or 5 days in advance. Level, for example, level 1, 0 to 1 is white, no signal about the severe thunderstorm.
Yes.
From 1 to 2 is marginal risk of thunderstorm that is covered by green color.
Yes.
For example, level 2 to 3 is yellow, that means slight to moderate risk, and so on. Level 4 to 5 is dangerous or very severe risk of thunderstorm in the area. And finally, extreme risk is the pink color. And given its global scale with numerous grid points, NOTAS provide detailed daily updates on very severe weather events. So now we have published several scientific articles. There is also articles which are with impact factor, and developed the sophisticated web portal, the FINCI, the Faculty of Computer Science and Engineering. They developed this web portal with a daily update.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Daily,
for your contribution. Very interesting model. We will be glad to share this information also in our guide book for the participants, and maybe additional case studies so we can share. But also, you are very welcome to join our group of COVALEX experts. Also, all the participants are invited if they're interested to join the NALAS COVALEX group of experts, where we want to create a regional hub of expertise that will support NALAS and the local governments in the next future activities that we are planning to. So I will be glad to share this information that you presented. We in autumn we have additional 2 trainings planned for the local governments, longer training events, and we will have opportunity to provide more examples of the new models, digital IT solutions. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. Just to add that this system was tested across the global scale, and some countries are very interested about. We presented also in Greece. They are very interested about the results of NOTAS in Paraguay, in Thailand, in Indonesia. Even more, we organized last year in the Faculty of FINCI, organized this seminar. It was the hybrid seminar with support of WMO, World Meteorological Organization. And here is also Goran Velinov, who is the professor of informatics, working in also partner in this developing. But I would like to apologize that maybe I had extended the presentation just to introduce, but there are many important details that we could share later.
No problem. We have a successful cooperation with FINCI on different project endeavors in developing the digital solutions for the local government. So it will be our pleasure to continue with our cooperation and collaboration. So, Jana?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Spiridonov, for sharing this information. We will for sure contact you for our future activities. Just to let you know, in the introductory part that Miodrag gave for this webinar, this project, COVALEX, is establishing an expert community across the European region, European Union, but also outside of the European Union, all the Western Balkan countries. And we have here the coordinator of the project, Professor Sonia Zaragoza from the University of La Coruña. So yes, hi Sonia, thank you. So I think it will be of of interest for all of us to extend and to expand the community of experts. So you and all the participants are welcome to join this expert community. There are many interesting events that are organized together with Sonia and her team, but also with the colleagues from Austria, Greece, and Italy, who are also a part of the COVALEX project. So we will contact you for inviting especially you and Mr. Goran Velinov, but as I said, all of you on the webinar are also welcome to join.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions, contributions? We are approaching to the end of this very interesting webinar. Today we had a lot of several events within the project. We have launched the promotional campaign, events that are ongoing today in Spain, in La Coruña, here in the Western Balkans, Southeast Europe, and all over the project countries that are implemented. So thank you very much for being with us at this webinar. Follow us for the next future activities on the COVALEX and NALAS social media, and we hope that we will have opportunity to welcome you at our next COVALEX activities. So thank you very much. Maybe closing words from Jana, Vasco, and Sonia at the end.
Only say that congratulations. I think it's very, very interesting, all the information and the links and the YouTube tools. And thank you, Vlado Spiridov, and welcome to COVALEX network. I think it's very useful, and you are I think it's very good that if you want to join us. I put my mail like a coordinator of COVALEX, and of course, it's a pleasure to count with you in our project. And thank you, Vasco. Very, very interesting, this information. I go to study all the slides and the presentation when you share this presentation, because it's very, very interesting, all of this team, and in the future is in our house, I think, our hands. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Mio. Congratulations, Jana.
Thank you, Sonia.
Miodrag, could you actually arrange to have the specific topic, actually, to invite Boro Yakimovsky, who is the dean of the faculty? He is absent now. He is in Turkey. Probably you discussed with him yesterday evening. Just to allow us in a specific topic, once you have another webinar or independently of these activities, to present, to give the overview of this system, which is really promising, because not only there is the very good scientific evidence and how to say, the confidence of the system in yearly warning of such severe weather events. It's really showed the verificational results show very high level of accuracy. So I would like to introduce this system together with my colleagues, because they are running one sophisticated platform, informatic platform, innovative platform for the users, in order to have data, access of all data in real time.
We have opportunities, so we are preparing theoretical materials for the participants, the guidebook for participants, and also we have 3 additional events in autumn, and I think that we will find opportunity for your participation and contribution in the COVALEX.
Okay. Thank you.
Vasco at the end. So just you're muted. Yeah?
After 2 hours, I muted myself. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to present this topic. I sincerely hope that I tried to deliver presentation in a different angle than usually, why it is important to build resilience and why it is important to innovate for resilience. So I am available for additional feedback, suggestion, comments. So through NALAS project, you can contact me and I will try to deliver new insights during the additional trainings. Thanks a lot once again.
Okay. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope we will see you soon again. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.